the only place for everything Vikings. 6, 1, 2, Vikings.
Welcome back to 612 Vikings. I am Dustin alongside Drew as always. Drew, how are we doing on this wonderful, not Thursday afternoon, but Wednesday afternoon?
Doing good. We got a couple days into the camps, and we got some news we can talk about, some transactional news, we'll call it. And then we got some news probably for some other teams as well regarding the state of the NFC North, too, and how that can affect the Vikings this year.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure. Well, we are in the second day of not training camp, but mini camp. That is the camp before training camp, for those of you that don't follow along with all the off-season stuff. But before we got to mini camp, we had an extension happen with a player, and that player is tight end Josh Oliver. He got a 3-year extension with the Vikings, coming off of his 3-year contract that he got initially with the Vikings 3 years ago. So, yeah, Josh Oliver coming back to the Minnesota Vikings, a crucial part of this offense. When Hockenson was out last year for a majority of the season, it was kind of Johnny Mundt and Josh Oliver. I think Oliver played pretty well in that role, kind of between that tight end 1 and 2 with Johnny Mundt. But, yeah, how are we feeling about Josh Oliver back with the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, you lock up a fairly young-ish kind of tight end, guy that's definitely in the prime of his career. I remember seeing him back in San Jose State, and back then San Jose State was just this garbage Mountain West team for a very long time. And all of a sudden, I go there and I'm at the game and I'm like, oh, there's this tight end guy named Josh Oliver. I'm like, I guess he's their only good player, or like, I don't know how they're so bad if they have a guy that's supposed to be a top, second or third round pick. It was kind of, mind blowing to me, but he's done fairly well. He started off with Baltimore, got drafted by them out of San Jose State, goes to the Vikings on another 2 or 3 year deal that he's just coming off of right now, and he's been well regarded as one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. So he's a guy that, you have that wide zone scheme opens up things for Aaron Jones on those toss plays, and can maybe throw him into a fullback role every now and then if you want to get fancy and creative with that. So he's definitely a versatile guy in that 12 personnel, which is something that I think the Vikings really like, and definitely very valuable one, and turned up really big when TJ Hockenson was out. Had some sure hands out there, not too many drops. He'll have the occasional ones every now and then, but not anything where he was a liability out there. So I think this is your average tight end pay, and I think that the Vikings got a good player, and they lock up some good depth behind Hockenson in case that ACL still isn't healed yet.
Yeah, I don't think you can be too mad about this extension. I think he's a crucial enough player to get an extension like he did. And, he's not a starter, but when he does come in, he leaves a big impact on the field. Hockenson and Oliver and Mundt were all kind of sharing snaps towards the end of the season because of how Hockenson was rolled back into the offense slowly and kind of different pace with that injury. So another guy that could get an extension sometime this month, maybe next couple weeks, maybe during training camp, sometime soon, is safety Josh Metellus. I think he's another crucial guy to that Vikings defense. Kind of makes the defense go, basically. And he's kind of like the queen on the chessboard with that defense as well in Brian Flores' scheme. When do you think Josh Metellus will probably get that extension? Do you think he should get one? How long? What do we think about that?
Yeah, I think with a guy like Metellus, he's still 27 years old, so I think this is a guy you probably give a 3-year deal to. Would be I think that's somewhere the Vikings are hoping, where it's long enough where he's still a relevant player for your team, but not old enough to where he becomes a liability and you're paying him so much money. So I think they're kind of looking at probably a 3-year deal, I think, is the hope, and you just got a huge bargain off of that last time around. He signed 2 years, $8 million was his contract extension. Like, what was that, last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
Yeah, so he, is a guy that, like you said, he could play every position, and I think he's been playing well out of his mind past that $4 million. And that pretty much everyone on this defense, it feels like, is playing better than what they're being paid for. So I think that came up really big, and I think that's what we're kind of hoping for with the Kirk years. And that's really what you need if you're going to pay a quarterback at that price. You got to hit on some guys in the draft and free agency and hope they outperform their contract value that they have set out. So I'm thinking that that's not going to be $4 million again. I would highly doubt it, but
what a bargain, huh?
Yeah, I think your hope is, I think you want to try to get it just under double digits. If it's 9, maybe 9.5, I think is what the Vikings are probably going to hope for. But I think Metellus might be pushing for double digits. So he's pushed for big safety money, and the Vikings just want to try to keep the bargain hunting continue with their upcoming season. So I think this will get done sooner rather than later. Metellus doesn't really seem like the kind of guy that would miss games like what they're doing in Cincinnati, the disaster they've got over there. So right. I think I like Metellus. I don't think that if they can't get a deal done, they'll just put it, table it, shelf it until free agency. Kind of similar to what we saw with Byron Murphy last year.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you were talking about big safety money, I know he came into the league as a safety, but he plays almost every position on that defense, in that defensive scheme. So I think the lowest paid position, franchise tag-wise, last year was safety. So is he going to try to get that linebacker money? Is he going to try to get that corner money, that safety money? I mean, he'll probably go with the safety money, I'm sure, just because of his role in this defense. He's not necessarily a starter, but he is. I know it's kind of a fine line to jump between, but what do we see his contract looking like?
It'll be for a safety position. I think this is we kind of go back to, we saw a little bit with Micah Parsons, but I think they kind of got that squared away pretty quickly. But a player we've seen that a lot with was Leonard Williams, where a lot of teams wanted to pay him D-tackle money, but a lot of, he was saying that I should get edge player money because they got paid more. So I don't think it'll be anything like that. It's very, very clear that Metellus is still a safety at the end of the day, but they could just kind of move him around and just be kind of like an Isaiah Simmons kind of player, essentially, is kind of who I compare him to. Is what we thought Isaiah Simmons was going to be in the NFL is what Josh Metellus is. So I believe they were actually in the same draft class too, which is kind of ironic. So
2020.
Yep, they were both in that same draft class. So it's kind of ironic how that all kind of came full circle for us. So, but he'll get paid safety money, and just for reference, the top paid safeties you're looking at are the knee slayer Kirby Joseph himself from Detroit. He's getting paid $21.25 million. You got Antoine Winfield Jr., a lot of respect for his dad. He's getting just over $21 million. And then Derwin James is number 3 at $19 million. So the top paid safeties, I don't think he's going to get paid that. But if it did come to a franchise tag scenario, you're probably looking at somewhere in the mid to high teens is what that would be like if they can't get a deal done. And I think that could be an option too for a 1-year deal. So
now, before we move off of these extensions here too, I want to ask one last question, and that's, with Josh Metellus, with his contract, I don't know much about contracts either, but could he possibly get like a 2-year extension, something small right now? Because when Harrison retires, that's in, probably after this year. And then, we have Theo Jackson probably starting. We don't know what the safety next to Theo Jackson is going to be. Will that be Josh Metellus? Is he going to get maybe a bigger payday after that two-year extension? If he does get something like that, I could see, a setup similar to that. I don't know about you. Kind of get paid, a little better this time around, but maybe get that bigger payday in about 2-3 years.
Yeah, I mean, are you asking if they're going to backload this contract a little bit, would you say?
Yeah, something like that. And then once Harrison retires, kind of give him that payday then, if he performs well in a starter role.
I mean, I think it's possible that you could go that route. I don't think the Vikings are going to be one to hold out. I think they want to get this done sooner rather than later. So I think the good thing is about this Metellus deal is that I feel like it kind of comes at the right time, because next year we actually are going to owe money on the cap. So we're going to have to move things around. So some names to keep an eye out for would be Ryan Kelly, who has no dead money. So if they release him, it's $12 million saved, especially at his age. And if he can't stay healthy, I think that he'll be released. But if you look at other players like that, Harrison Smith very much could be on the very last year of his career. So his average annual value on his new contract is $10.25 million. So maybe that money that goes from Harrison then just kind of transfers over to Metellus. And then we'll kind of wait and see what Theo Jackson does, if they go that route or if they want to draft a safety in this upcoming draft. But I think that's what it would be. It's just kind of a nice transition from one team, from one player to the other, where you're not really, losing that much for the cap purposes, at least.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's move on to minicamp. We got mandatory minicamp just starting just this week, I believe on Monday or Tuesday. We're now on the second or third day of that. And, everybody's looking pretty good. Outside of pads, you can't really judge too much. But the one player that everybody is watching is, quote-unquote, rookie J.J. McCarthy, rookie quarterback. So, J.J. McCarthy, from what we've seen on Twitter, YouTube highlights, everything that we can view from those practices is J.J., I don't know, kind of up and down right now. A lot of people are saying that he's thrown 3 interceptions 3 different days, just 1 interception each day. So, I don't know. To me, this ain't that big of a deal. It's practice, and we're in the second week of June right now. So it's, I don't know. Like I said, not that big of a deal. I don't know how you make it, but I don't know. He's going to have struggles. He's going to have great plays. So,
yeah, I think this is all the stuff that they need something to talk about. It's the filler part of the season. So, I think I said this months ago, is when we roll in past the draft, you're going to start seeing like OTA stuff, and people are going to freak out because a player made a pass. And the player I always point to, just because it's so funny, was I think Viking fans know this all too well, was when Justin Fields first came in the league. He was like Jesus Christ walking on water because he made a pass, and everyone thought he was going to be so good and everything, and obviously it didn't work out. So, and then we've seen scenarios too. I can go back as late as Patrick Mahomes, where he was a guy that really struggled in training camp, and now he's the best quarterback in the NFL. So I really don't take too much stock into training camp OTA stuff. I think the main thing you do want to watch for, though, and we don't really get to see that until training camp really starts, where the fans are there and media is a lot more present there, is how are they reading the defense, and then how are they getting through those progressions. And then if they're just throwing the ball accurately, that's really all you got to look for. Because, like I said, it's going to be it's one thing when your defense knows the play, because they may not know the play, but they know the play. Like the best comparison I could think of is like if you play basketball, like you have your A team going against your B team in your practice, and you're practicing against them, and your B team still knows the offensive plays, so they have to, because you got to flip sides of the ball. So they don't know, but they really know what to look for. So I think it's a lot hard. Honestly, you can make a case that practice could be harder than the real game. So it's good if you're doing practice right. So it's something I really wouldn't worry about. And full disclosure, this whole OTA stats stuff for JJ is not real. As much as I would like for it to be real, it is not real. But we'll kind of see how he does when fans are there, and I think fans are definitely going to be excited to see him.
Well, you brought up Patrick Mahomes, a couple, when he first got into the league. I pulled up a tweet today because I was looking up, Patrick Mahomes, just throwing an interception in practice just to say, hey, he's throwing them too. Yeah, every quarterback does. That's, grass is green. So I pulled up a tweet that said, Patrick Mahomes is on 1 of 3 interceptions from practice today, and why he didn't run for a touchdown with a big lane available to him. So he's thrown 3 interceptions in one single practice, and that was back in 2018 when that was his first year starting after being a rookie. So this is kind of aligning where JJ is being a starter right now in his second year, just like Mahomes was. So JJ can have 18 picks in one practice. I do not care. Let's see what he looks like when the practice upticks a little bit, with pads and, just playing a little more live, I guess, and then in preseason and then actual games, because then you can actually judge properly. These guys are not in pads right now. It's practice. Like, you can't really make too much of it. But, we got to see what training camp looks like, too. So
Yeah, and I kind of want to bring it back a little bit to this, too, because I think the big thing going on right now is this whole, there's a segment on the Colin Cowherd show where he was talking about JJ, and if you don't know, Colin Cowherd is a big anti-JJ McCarthy guy until he proves him wrong, and even then, he'll still have his doubts. So I think he's one of those guys where he can come around and say, "Oh, see, I told you so. There's something wrong with this kid." So, and that's just every national media member. But essentially, what he goes on to say is that he's got a modest arm, which is not true whatsoever. Because if anyone says that JJ has a weak arm, just tell them they don't know ball. Kind of like do the Josh Donaldson, like tell them no kind of thing. Just be like, tell him no. He's got a strong arm. So some ammo you can use is that he had the second fastest throw in NFL Combine history, only behind the great Josh Allen and Joe Milton. Or I think Joe Milton beat him by 1 mile an hour. I think he was second in his draft class there. But I believe that was actually either tied with Josh Allen or he just was like 1 mile an hour shy of Josh Allen. So it was like really, 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 really close between those two. Yeah. So he's definitely got the zip. And honestly, I feel like with McCarthy, I think if I had to nitpick with him on anything, it wasn't even the arm strength. I think I kind of see a little John Elway where he wants to fire it in like Brett Favre and John Elway. He wants to throw this this big fastball into the hands of your receivers, and I want to see a little bit more touch in there. Kind of Kirk a little bit, like where you have a little bit more touch on the ball. But we'll see what happens. I mean, we've seen guys work with it before and end up being Hall of Famers and win Super Bowls without having to touch pass ball. So I think that's honestly the one thing. If I would say if there's a negative, is just that. So he could do really well in the intermediate balls and. The deep balls might be a little work in progress, but I don't think we really have any big guys that can really take the top off. We're very much a patient offense, and not say dink and dunk, but we use a lot of intermediate passes and a lot of yards after catch. So, a lot of the catches you see from JJ are the yards after catch, the racks and stuff like that.
And that's where tight end TJ Hawkinson will come in huge too. He'll be the best friend of JJ in this offense.
Yeah, and Ty Felton as well. He's a guy that can. Loves the screens, the bubbles, and I think even Rondale Moore too, because he's a screen bubble kind of receiver as well. And I think Felton will be used a little bit more on those drag routes. He seems to be very, very good with that and getting yards after catch there. I think that seems to be a little bit more of his specialty. And I honestly, I think a guy that I would really watch for. I don't want to say concerned about, but a guy who could maybe not see the best stats maybe from years prior, like what he did with Darnold, was Jordan Addison, because he is a little bit more of a deep ball threat. But like I said, if McCarthy gets this deep, yep. So when it comes to JJ McCarthy, I think the one thing you want to look at is the deep ball a little bit. He really wasn't asked too much to throw the ball deep as much, and I think that really just comes with the similarities that Michigan's offense had with Minnesota's. Is they didn't really have that big deep threat. Roman Wilson was very much similar to a Justin Jefferson type of player, where you would get a lot of those yards after catch plays at Michigan. So. Not that he's the Justin Jefferson at Michigan, and that's why they won it, but very, very different. He's on his own caliber of receivers when it came to college football. But I'm just saying the way they approached the game was very, very similar, and I think that'll help him out a little bit. So I think this will be a thing that'll be just as fine. I wouldn't worry about JJ. I think everything will be just fine with him until it proves that it's not. I think that's kind of the approach I'm taking with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot for him to really be bad in this offense. I mean, he has the keys to the car. All he has to do is just get in and drive it. So,
yeah,
kind of like how the 49ers were a couple of years ago, just plug and play. Jimmy G, Brock Purdy for a little bit. So that's all you really got to do.
Yeah. And I want to finish off with this real quick. And I want to say, part of me feels like we talked a little bit about this, like this whole Moneyball approach. I think the way that the Vikings are going and building the football team is kind of like, for me, I feel like is the most unconventional way. It is the Moneyball approach. Because you got to remember when the whole Moneyball thing was going on, they were calling for, they're like, oh, this Moneyball thing doesn't work. The same metrics, it's a flawed thing. And I mean, Bill James, if you're a stat nerd, he didn't really get hired until years later by the Red Sox. So, a lot of people see it as a flawed concept. And I feel like, and now everyone loves it and everyone uses it in the MLB. So, but I think when you look at the Vikings, I think they're just building the team in the non-traditional way. Like they built the foundation. I mean, how many teams can you really look at in history where they built their foundation first and then drafted the quarterback? Because I really can't name one. I mean, maybe Andrew Luck, but I think that was because Peyton Manning got hurt, and it was a little bit more of an unexpected thing, and they just kind of lucked into the number one pick. No pun intended. But I think that's kind of like I can't really name any other teams that have done that really. I mean, maybe the Niners, but like they already had established themselves there, and I don't think they kind of pick and chose where they got their good players from, I would say, right, or they had been around for a very, very long time. But maybe you look at Trey Lance, but I think that's the only other guy maybe you can look at that, where they had that foundation already set, and they had the, like I said, the foundation already set for that quarterback going in. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of these teams, dating back to like the early 2000s or just at any point in the NFL, is they draft these quarterbacks hoping that they turn around their franchise, and you're not really building your quarterback up to succeed in that offense or for that team. You take a look back at like just recently, like Bryce Young or any Bears quarterback before Caleb Williams right now, just because we don't know what Williams is right now. But Bryce Young, the Panthers, they needed a quarterback. They don't have a team for it. He's probably doing a little better now. The last half of last year kind of came into his own, played a little better. You kind of look back just a couple years at all these different quarterbacks. They're not set up to succeed. And that's what Kevin O'Connell wants to do. That's what the Vikings want to do. Kevin O'Connell said it best that, organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations. And that's so true. And I think more teams should use that approach too, where you got to build your team, your offense at least, and then put in your quarterback, plug and play, and then he can help you win games actually. So I don't know. That's just kind of my take. I think it's a good approach to going about that. So
yeah.
Flipping this over to some NFC North news. I know this is kind of airing it out now, but Jaire Alexander, he is now a free agent in the NFL. The Vikings, according to Darren Wolfson, Doogie, the Vikings aren't interested right now as a part of the early teams that are interested. So that can change at any point, hour by hour, day by day. But right now the Vikings are not interested in Jaire Alexander for their cornerback room. Their cornerback room right now, I don't know want to say I'm comfortable with it, but I am at the same time. Mm-hmm. We're just like an injury or two away from it being very below average, I want to say. Byron Murphy, you just paid him. If he goes down, he's one of your big chess pieces in your cornerback room at least, where he can play outside, slot, just any of those positions. Isaiah Rodgers, we don't know what he's going to look like in this Brian Flores scheme. I know he's very high on Rodgers. Jeff Okudah, he's not going to see the field too much in a starting role. Mekhi Blackman's coming off of injury, so can the Vikings use a guy like Jaire Alexander in this defense? I know the answer is probably yes. I mean, it might be a little too crowded, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind Jaire Alexander on the Vikings.
Yeah, I think the Vikings this offseason proved that they don't mind having good players sit the bench and have really good depth behind other good players. And we've seen it before where in 2023 we had guys get hurt left and right that year, and I don't say they walked into 7 wins, but it kind of felt like at the end of the season, that second half, they kind of sleptwalked into a 7-10 season after starting off with like 7-2 or something like that, I think is what it was, or like 6-2, some crazy like that. But after that Kirk injury, things just kind of derailed, and other guys started getting hurt. So I don't mind. I mean, I'm always for adding more players and making the team better, which I think that ability wise he can. But I see both sides of the situation where I look at Jaire and I do see what Viking fans like. I see, he's the fake tough guy. I mean, he's not tough. He's not a scary guy whatsoever. Like I never looked at the Packers, even when he was a rookie. I've never been scared to go against Justin Jefferson, and I think that's why Green Bay fans had that one little clip, because I feel like that's really all they had. That's like the only good performance he had, and the fact that he's going out on the captain thing and doing whatever he wants, I think he does lack some maturity in that aspect. But at the same time, you look at it, the Moneyball approach says you would sign him because the 3 A's of Moneyball are age and ability and appearance. So that's the three things that teams really want to stray away from. They're like, oh, we can't sign this guy because he's too old, or he looks funny, he has a weird stance, or ability's bad, or whatever it could be, and they just come up with some sort of negative. And the Moneyball approach says that you ignore that and you sign whatever players you think can help your football team or your baseball team or whatever, the sabermetric aspect of it. But so it's really weird because I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings sign him, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they don't sign him. It's kind of like this weird limbo because I think Aaron Jones, I think you kind of saw it a little bit where you're like, yeah, I could see him kind of coming and seeing the Vikings trying to make it work, where Jaire, I have a little bit more doubts just because he does have a lack of maturity a little bit. He puts on this fake guy facade and tries to act like he's holier than thou, and it's kind of hard to respect a player when you act like that and you're getting torched constantly by a first or second year receiver consistently. So I think that's like the only thing I really kind of have with Jaire. I'm kind of back and forth on, or it's like, yeah, it would be kind of great if we had him, but would he tear down the culture that the Vikings have already established? Kind of similar to having Stephon Diggs kind of coming back, I think is a good comparison for the Vikings on trying to re-sign players or sign players.
Yeah. I mean, would you rather have Jalen Ramsey or Jaire Alexander at this point in time for 1 year?
I think the Jaire thing, not the Jaire thing, the Jalen Ramsey thing, I think there's some complications with that, especially given our team. I think Jaire is a little bit more realistic than Jalen Ramsey, because with Jalen Ramsey, if they were to pick him up in a trade, I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but if they pick him up in a trade, you have to pay him a lot of dead money that next year, which the Vikings don't have the ability for that cap space, because once you cut him, yeah, you'll save some money, but you're also losing out on that much money too because you have to release him. So it's dead money. It's money that you could have spent on other players. So I think for me, if it was one of those scenarios where you're kind of like, let's say you're the Chiefs in the 2018-2019 offseason, coming off the heartbreaking AFC Championship loss, I would have said, yeah, for sure, because you would have been a proven team that can go and try to win a Super Bowl, but the Vikings haven't been that quite yet. So I would say no on Jalen Ramsey, even though they do have the connection, or if he can negotiate some sort of pay cut, then sure. But I think the only way I'd be okay with Ramsey coming is for the cap space purpose would be if they released him and then we were to snag him. I think that's probably the most likely way we were to get Ramsey. So I think in this scenario, I think Jaire Alexander would be the more realistic option, more than Jalen Ramsey at this current moment in time.
Well, he's for sure not going back to the Packers just because they have their new weapon at cornerback, and that's former wide receiver turning cornerback, Mr. Bo Melton. What the heck is what's up with that? Do they want their own Travis Hunter over there? Or I don't see that working out, honestly.
No, I mean, Bo Melton wasn't like a god-awful receiver, but I think, don't forget that his brother Max Melton is also a corner. I don't know what team he's on exactly off the top of my head. I have to take a look. But
I want to say Panthers?
Yeah.
Let me look that up.
He's like in a very small market team, but when it comes with Max Melton, I think it's the whole brother, maybe it's just a sibling rivalry where, it's like what you can do, I can do better sort of thing, because, Bo Melton is the older brother, so maybe it's like, oh, I can't let my younger brother be better than
Cardinals.
He is the Panthers?
Cardinals.
Oh, Cardinals. Okay, yeah, that's right. It was the Cardinals. So, but yeah, like I said, small market team. It was some small market team that he was on, but maybe it's one of those things. But I just don't see it working out. And if it does work out, it would have to be somewhere. I'm not scared about it for this year. Maybe not even next year. But it would have to be probably for 2027 if I start getting worried about it. But I mean, we've seen guys do it before. Guys that flip from receiver to corner. I mean, the most notable one I can think of is Darian Kendrick, who's on I think he's on the Rams right now. I think he's still there, but started off as a receiver at Clemson and then got flipped over to corner. Oh, and another guy, former J.J. McCarthy teammate Mike Sainristil, was a wide receiver at Michigan early on. I think he was actually a receiver when what's his name, Cade McNamara was their quarterback, and I think he flipped over to corner when J.J. took over the team. So there wasn't any connection there, but he did start off at receiver. So it has been done before. But it does take some time, maybe a minimum of 2 years, probably 3 years for your average player. But it's been done before, so we'll see if it works out. But I think it's kind of naive to think, to kind of blow 2 years of youth on a player and flip them that corner this late in their career, especially being drafted or undrafted 3-4 years ago.
Right. Do the Packers have the worst cornerback room in the entire NFL right now?
I think it's got to be them. I'm like, I don't think it's
Gotta
biased.
be.
Got to be. I mean, I don't think Packer fans would disagree. I not to say that it can't get better. I still
Yeah.
think guys out there. Shaq Griffin's still out there. If they want to go and sign him, I see if it works out there. But there's still Stephon Gilmore if they want to think if they can get one more year out of him. But I think they will make a move at corner. I think it's just a matter of who. I just don't see them rolling out with Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine as your number one and number two corners. So I think they will sign a guy. It might not even be till preseason or maybe close to training camp. But I just don't. I mean, they as of this moment, they've got to have the worst DB room in especially in the North and as well as the NFL. And you have a division with DJ Moore and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. It'll be tough for them. So unless they can get pressure really quickly, I just don't. I mean, at this current moment in time, I think we're kind of looking at the Packers as being the AFC or the NFC version of the Bengals at this point if they don't have a good corner out there.
Something that is looking a little better than the Packers cornerback room is probably the Vikings season outlook. A lot of people have, I guess, not a lot of people, but I guess they do. But Vegas has the Vikings at what, 8.5 win total for this year for 2025. So I think, personally, not being biased, but I think the Vikings can probably get double digits this year. What do you say, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, I think the expectation for that to happen would be he's got to be at least Brock Purdy. And I've been on TikTok Live and people that have disagreed, but it's just funny how you tell them and they say, oh yeah, they have a good foundation. It's like I think I mentioned to you earlier. It's like that Man Race Patrick meme from SpongeBob, where it's like, this is your wallet, yes. Oh, this is your ID then. Oh no, it's whatever it is. So however
Must
the
be
meme.
your wallet.
Yeah, it's not my
Sounds good
wallet.
to me.
Exactly. That's how I feel it. Like you explain, like the Vikings have a good foundation, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and they have a good coaching staff. Yes. So realistic expectation would be that he's just got to be Brock Purdy, right? And that's something that's attainable. Yeah. So the Vikings will win, 10 to 12 games or whatever it is. They're not going to win 12 games. They're going to win 7. I'm just like, oh my lord. So, like I said, if you can go in and just say,
pick a side.
Yeah, if JJ is literally just Brock Purdy, just efficient with the ball, doesn't turn the ball over, they're going to win double-digit games. I think the only way they don't is if he's just a god-awful quarterback and he's just lost. And we're looking at Dobbs, Mullins, 2.0 being thrown out there. I think that's the only way I would say we don't get the 10 wins or more. But, I mean, even then, a lot of those games where Mullins was playing, there was no Justin Jefferson. So I think it is very much attainable. If guys could just stay healthy and the O-line stays healthy, I think it's very, very much a realistic expectation for them to win double-digit games.
I mean, Josh Metellus did kind of not compare J.J. McCarthy to Sean Mannion, so
yeah, I'm not buying too much stock into that.
I'm not. I'm not either. That's
I think what it means more is he's got the strong arm, which Mannion did have a strong arm.
Yeah,
that was undeniable. He did have a strong arm. Did he have a good arm? No, he did not have a good arm. Not very accurate. So that's what separates it. Like you're basically saying, like, okay, well, Anthony Richardson has a very strong arm, but his accuracy is atrocious. So I think it's more like that, and like even the mental part of it, like with JJ. So I think that's kind of where maybe you see the similarities there. But I mean, Sean Mannion's like archetype kind of player was not a bad archetype to have in the NFL. I think it's kind of maybe 10 years too late because he was so immobile. But I just don't see. I would never put Mannion with McCarthy as like a player comp in this league. The same player whatsoever. Like JJ can run. I think it's just simple. JJ can run, Mannion can. I think that's just very simple. So, like I think that'd be like saying, Dante Culpepper to Lamar Jackson. It's like, well, Lamar Jackson's a scrambler. Dante could run a little bit, but did he rely on the run? Or did he rely on it as much as Lamar? No, he didn't. So I think that's kind of the approach you take with it more or less than anything.
Yeah, that's for sure. Make sure you guys down in the comments, if you guys are watching on YouTube, put your season win total. What you guys think the Vikings will have down in the comments. If I had to guess right now, I would probably put them. I'd say they'll hover around 10, 11 wins. What do you think?
I'm gonna go 12. I think 12
Ooh.
and 5 is a very, very realistic expectation. I think for that to happen, though, I think you got to have a season like last year where you start off red hot and maybe cool off a little bit mid-season, but you've got to be.
Which they can do.
Yeah, they can do that, but you got to be able to pick it up at the end of the season. Like, you can't fall flat on your face week 17 or week 18. It's just, you can't do that. So I think the Vikings just kind of had that second red hot start just a little too early for them before they went into the playoffs. But I like you say, I mean, you look at their schedule. I'll pull it up while I'm discussing this. But if they go 5-0 and into their bye week where they really hit that meat of their schedule, I think it's really attainable. They can get 12 wins, and some people are going to disagree. I think it's very, very, very clear that they can hit it. So you look at their first 5 before the bye. You have the Bears. That's a very winnable game. The Falcons at home, the Bengals at home, the Steelers in Ireland, and the Browns in London. So all those are very much winnable games. So I think if you go in, start off 5-0, I think 12 wins is really attainable. And then coming off the bye, you have Philly, LA, Detroit, Baltimore. So and then that's a whole other issue. We'll go into that a little bit more later. But yeah, I think 12 wins is very, very much attainable for the Vikings this year.
Well, all we can do is just reach for the stars and get over that 10. If they can make it over 10 wins, I'd be happy, honestly. So
yeah,
it's a very successful season. Make the playoffs, do whatever in the playoffs. It's a whole different animal. So with that said, make sure you guys, if you guys are listening, give us a 5-star review or any type of review. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, 612 Vikings. And if you are on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video. Follow us over on Twitter or X at 612 Vikings. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Skol Vikes.